you're kind of hard on religion, I'm sure you'll admit. You call it the one species of human ignorance that will not admit of even the possibility of correction. You complain that it exhibits no progress. You write, if religion addresses a genuine sphere of human understanding and human necessity, then it should be susceptible to progress. Its doctrine should become more useful rather than less. Well, I'd argue there has been a certain kind of progress in broad swaths of religious tradition. I mean, on the kind of scientific front, the Catholic Church finally did get around to apologizing to Galileo. Took a while.
But 300 years.
Well, these things take a while to settle. But a lot of traditions, a lot of parts of Christianity have taken account of, geological and biological truth to some extent. They acknowledge the truth of evolution. On the kind of moral front, there's been the evolution of the doctrine, certainly not subscribed to by all Christians, but the idea that you don't have to be a Christian to be saved. And actually, it turns out that official Catholic doctrine, apparently, is that you can be an atheist and be saved. Now that I would call a kind of moral progress. Things like, the decline of kind of animal sacrifice even. I mean, do you acknowledge any degree of improvement? You actually write as if you don't. You say it will not admit of even the possibility of correction.
Well, I think that has to be put in context, that particular line. I admit that, for instance, in the West, Christianity has been moderated considerably. I mean, we are no longer burning heretics alive on our street corners, but we were doing this for 500 years in Europe under the aegis of Christianity. And it's a good thing. It's good that we have changed in that way. But the thing to credit for that is not religion itself. It's not like people just started somehow finding reasons to moderate their behavior in the Bible. Reading the Bible more closely doesn't get you religious moderation. It doesn't get you an openness to stem cell research or gay marriage or whatever else comes.
No, the reality that intrudes from. Is what does it. I mean, but that's facts about the environment. I mean, that's a good thing if the system is amenable to change via facts coming in from the environment.
Well, it's amenable to change under considerable duress. There's really been a collision between religion and science and religion and secular politics, and the collision, we're living through the collision in the States now. And so it's not, I don't think you should. One line I have in The End of Faith is that the doors leading out of religious literalism don't open from the inside. They're always kicked open by the outside, by secularism, by tensions with the world, by the realization that now we understand the nervous system, and demonic possession is not the best diagnosis of your child's epilepsy. Epilepsy is, so the moment we understand epilepsy, the good doctors of the church stop giving these diagnoses and stop trying to drive out demons for the most part.
You could say some of the same thing about medicine itself and even about science. Thomas Kuhn made the point that the way new scientific paradigms come into being is actually not that the adherents of the old paradigms come to see the truth of the new paradigm. They just die.
Right.
And young people who came of age as the new paradigm was coalescing become the new generation of scientists who accept quantum physics and realize that Newtonian physics alone won't get it. So look, religion is definitely more constrained by its history than science. It seems to be right as if there's no hope of progress within it, and ultimately that matters in terms of what you're going to try to do about the world, whether there is hope for productive change within a religious framework or there is not.
Yeah, well, it's not that there's no hope for progress in the world, but I think the hope lies in a truly open-ended human conversation, which requires of all parties that they have their beliefs about the world and their behavior open to being modified by new evidence and new argument. A new piece of data emerges, for instance, that AIDS is really spread by sexual activity. That acknowledging that fact is in fundamental contrast with the dogma of Catholicism that contraception use is sinful. So you have there's no reconciling these two things, and the Vatican and the Catholic Church generally, to its discredit, has been very slow to give way in the face of this truth. And so you have Catholic ministers in sub-Saharan Africa, where 3 to 4 million people die every year from AIDS, literally preaching the sinfulness of condom use in villages where the only information about condom use is the representation of the ministry. So I think this is, I mean, I've said before, I think this is genocidal stupidity, and we respect it. You know, there's some criticism of it, but we respect it to the degree that it's, you know, everyone needs to be free to believe what they believe about God, and this is the Christian church after all. If this were a secular institution doing this, I mean, there would be criminal charges brought against it. I mean, it would be really resisted by people, because it is just it's incredibly exploitative of people's ignorance, and it leads to death. You know, so I think, I mean, so here's a case study. Let's say this dogma really gets rewritten in the next 10 years. You know, let's say the Pope announces, you know, we had it wrong. Condom use is actually part of the the holy office of the Catholic faith now, and you must use condoms at every opportunity. So who are we going to credit for that? Catholicism? You know, the fact that it took decades of this promulgation of human misery and criticism from op-ed writers in the New York Times, or are we going to credit the fact that once again science and secularism and basic common sense has won an inch of ground from religious dogmatism?